Greetings, readers and friends. Harvey Michaels here. I'm thrilled to welcome you to our adventure into Danshui, President Plunge, Book 1, Evacuate or Pay. It was an electrifying story to write, and I can't wait to share some with you today. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Your support means the world to me. Thank you kindly. Okay, here we go. Chapter 7. Be warned, the content may be upsetting. Bali Police Department. Internet GPS-linked computer systems in the government priority vehicle sent out in a 10-kilometer range the emergency SOS, which included the last 5 minutes of audio recorded inside the van. However, authorities aren't sure what to do with it. Police precincts within 10 kilometers of the emergency are in densely populated areas where undermanned police departments are hunkering down as best they can, wherever they could, out of Super Typhoon Noru's way. Sergeant Bao in Bali Precinct sees and reacts to the SOS titled Security Vehicle for Minister Wang Sanbao Emergency. He finds the audio attachment irresistible. He hits the radio to bring his officers in the loop. Men, be aware. It looks like something big happened over at Danshui Fisherman's Wharf. The security vehicle responsible for the billionaire Wang Sanbao crashed and sent out an emergency SOS. Then he adds, "Hey guys, you're going to hear a lot coming out of Danshui beginning now. This will be big news. Here's the bottom line, straight from the horse's mouth. This recording came with the SOS. Let's check it out." In a decision that would cost Sergeant Bao his position, he puts the 5-minute recording out on the police scanner. The only filter was him saying, "This is for BLPD officers' information only." Seconds later, he cues it up on the BLPD radio. The audio goes out over the air every second, all the way to the big soft whoomph when the van meets the surf, followed by the wounded gunman's agony exiting. After his caterwauling, puking, and colliding out the door, the last sounds are sloshing water filling the van and loud, haunting wind screams fading into nothing. Newsy Susie. Newsy Susie glances in her wastebasket at 2 half-eaten granola bars. She bounces on her feet as she paces. Her anticipation is an itch she is dying to scratch. 5 minutes earlier, Howard and Mariana phoned and said they were sending video of the event. But something delayed them, and it's vexing Susie. She grills her new assistant, Kitty, not for the first time. "Do you have the telephone numbers separated and ready?" "Yes, checked and double-checked." "Good. Are the input phone lines for the news stations in the shortcuts on each computer desktop?" "Yes, boss." She turns her head to triple-check. Each computer's screensaver is configured so their screens will stay lit. Newsy Susie has been harassing her short-term assistant non-stop about everything from going to the bathroom to keeping 3 dedicated laptops ready to edit specific types of media. Susie kept at it since they first met the day before. She spelled out rules for Kitty and said, "From my name, you see I like to catch details and I'm in business to build things I want." Kitty nodded, flashed a dimpled smile. "Good. I can't wait to be a part of it." Kitty claimed in her online personal advertisement to be the best journalist assistant guaranteed. Susie tested Kitty's claim every way she could think of since early morning and had the young lady wound up almost to a breaking point. Susie forces herself to ease off just a little now. A notification beeper sounds from the laptop designated to edit received images from Howard and Mariana. "There it is! Time to go!" Susie exclaims. Almost at the same time, she hears Sergeant Bao's crackling radio voice on the police band. He is telling Bali police cruisers he will play something that will explain the big news they are going to hear from Danshui. He even identifies it as the vehicle's recorded last minutes automatically sent in the broadcast SOS. Shh, what? Susie exclaims. Oh, did you hear that? Susie throws one arm straight up and brings down a clenched fist near her hugest smile. We're in business early. Yes, what a gift. She has a fleeting thought the voice might have chosen her because she is near enough to Bali to receive the local police band transmission clearly. But then she remembers it was Kitty who pushed Susie to rig a laptop sound recording for the police radio band. Susie was already recording 4 streams of different TV news channels and all phone calls. Susie and Kitty are shocked at what comes on screen in front of them in Howard and Mariana's just sent media. They peruse the photo images on one laptop and play the downloaded video on another while they listen to the police radio SOS audio narrating what they see for themselves. Until that moment, Susie did not know what the event was. Plunge! Susie shouts out. Whoa, what? Kitty jumps, startled by what sounds like a command. Susie is looking intensely at the wall clock as inspiration still hits her. We'll call this President's Plunge. She turns to Kitty. Listen, you've got to hurry and paste my byline logo on every frame of the video I just sent you for my second report. We've got to make it theft-proof. Do you understand? Yes. Just like you told me, just like on the first one. Kitty speaks as she quickly rises from her desk chair in front of the telephones and moves to a stool in front of the laptop Susie still points at. From outside the apartment turned office, they hear whistling screams of super typhoon winds, a speeding train with its useless air brakes locked on. As she listens, Susie figures ways she can use this SOS audio, mostly a one-way phone conversation. It is a huge mistake by the Bali Police Department. Families involved will suffer from the public media release, but she has no compunction to hold herself back for the sake of any innocents involved. Once it went on the police radio, it became news, plain and simple. Kitty and Susie already saved radio chatter between an Officer Hu and his BLPD superior, Sergeant Bao. The sergeant is an idiot and apparently hates Hu. He sent the officer riding solo outside his police car onto a tree-blocked hilly curve blowing with gale force winds. Not news, but too amazing to not keep. Where are you on the video, Kitty? Susie smiles at her and uses the girl's name only for the second time that night. Just about halfway, Kitty keeps her head down and her fingers moving, wondering if she's halfway into a new job. Susie told her a job was possible and Kitty could expect a generous bonus if she did her best throughout their project. Kitty confided how she is thankful for this job that is floating her boat, which was beached from a lousy boss who cheated her out of her last check when she quit to avoid his cheeky advances. Susie slaps her hands together to bring back her suddenly spacing out assistant. Good, keep it up. Things are really going to get interesting around here in no time at all. Susie cut out the first minute of her high-definition recorded copy of the SOS audio, almost all storm sounds. She left the rest intact, beginning when the bodyguard demanded to let them speak with their wives. Susie swallows her revulsion at the violent reality playing out and her own guilt rising for the part she is playing. He chose me. I didn't choose him, she says under her breath and proceeds to make news. Susie's first breaking news report video is half a minute of priming the pump with non-eventful early typhoon photos Howard and Mariana sent to Susie. Thursday night, the voice told Susie to arrange some early photo and video collecting from the front of the hotel. It was the last time she heard from the chef on her landline office phone. "Are you ready?" the now familiar faceless voice asked. "Ready for what?" Susie's eyebrows furrowed into 2 question marks, wondering why he was calling for the 3rd time in 3 weeks on the office phone instead of the cell phone he gave her. Susie wanted to ask a dozen questions, but held her tongue. Besides his tendency to hang up on her, he also convinced her in their last cell phone conversation that police would investigate every single one of their phone conversations from the first to the last. "That's right. You don't have any idea what is about to happen, right?" The voice was calling the shots, and Susie was in too deep to challenge him about any of this. "Take my advice and send your photo people to get some earlier footage near their Danshui parking spot. Tell them to get you 10 minutes of video in front of the Fullon Hotel entrance before and after 9 o'clock. Tell them to stand 50 meters away and just film the front entrance with a tripod. It is right there at the Danshui Fisherman's Wharf. Have them wait until an armored stretch van drops off a VIP there." "Why? What is there?" Susie asked, looking at her watch. It was already 9:30 Thursday night. She would have to call Howard and Mariana, who until now only knew to be in position to record at exactly 10:30 on Friday morning. "Why? Doesn't matter, Susie, but trust me, you will be glad you have the video." Before hanging up, he questioned her once more about her readiness. The voice reminded her in precise words where Howard and Mariana were to park and film from, even though an hour earlier he sent a short video through an anonymous email account showing exactly where and how they were to park. He urged her to soldier through to the end. He promised her she would be the envy of every reporter in the universe. Neither of them said a word about the large envelope taped to the bottom of her door sometime late Wednesday night. There was a sealed, letter-sized envelope inside the larger envelope. Inside the smaller envelope was written, "Do not open this envelope until Friday at 1:30 p.m." 2 letter-sized pages of instructions inside the larger envelope next to the smaller sealed envelope explained much. The voice listed 25 things Susie was never to admit, even partially to, and she could never talk about these with anyone ever. Susie must open the smaller envelope at 1:30 with a camera recording and in the presence of her assistant. And "you should act surprised at the contents" was underlined. She would later show the small envelope and its contents to the police when they came. "She could be sure police were coming" was underlined too. The 2 pages of instructions spelled out what was inside the sealed envelope. When she opened it Friday afternoon, she would find instructions for the record about conditions she must ask for when she insisted on immunity from prosecution for her cooperation, including protected sharing of footage and photographs, which was her property. Also inside the sealed envelope was a confession from the chef that Susie knew nothing of the events about to unfold. In the 2-page letter for Susie, he told her it was very important she carefully think out her immunity agreement conditions. "Suzanne, this will direct your future the same way your new fame will." The letter told her to insist police publicly thank her and publicly express no suspicion of Susie's involvement. And Susie had to get this from the police before she said anything about anything. She was to burn and flush this 2-page letter and discard the larger envelope. She was to save the sealed envelope, saying she found it in her apartment mailbox. That last part was laughable to Susie. She checked her mailbox at most once a week. Susie records an introduction to the second of 3 breaking news reports, which will break her career wide open. This is Newsy Susie with a breaking news report from Danshui Port. Billionaire Wang Family Enterprises president Wang Sanbao was abducted from the Fullon Hotel at approximately 1 in the afternoon and taken to a back lot behind the Danshui Fisherman's Wharf, where he and his security detail were forced at gunpoint to drive over the back wall into the sea during Super Typhoon Noru. The following phone conversation was recorded off of a police band radio broadcast. Please be warned, the content may be upsetting to hear. She saves a copy of that audio introduction separately in a computer folder of files to re-record in English or to make subtitled English versions to sell to international TV news stations. Susie feels flushed, imagining putting out many dozens of breaking news reports in the next 48 hours. Most of them will be remakes of the first ones, but that won't matter to news stations and news media companies starved for new content. She posts her first breaking news report by Newsy Susie less than 10 minutes after the van launched off that ramp. She never gives the Bali Police Department credit for her first scoops, but she knows full well their ineptitude got her launched. Her first byline was not the van-recorded phone conversation. Her first breaking news report was her own voice delivering the simple news of the SOS sent, followed by Sergeant Bao's short introductory comments. Susie edited the police band audio down to Sergeant Bao's clear voice stating, "Something big happened right at the Danshui Fisherman's Wharf. The security vehicle responsible for the billionaire Wang Sanbao crashed and sent out an emergency SOS." She records another short blurb herself, restating the time the SOS was transmitted, just minutes before. Susie explains at the end, that voice is an unidentified police spokesperson recorded from the police band radio. She splices this short audio segment onto 3 photos rotating in a brief slideshow of the battened down Fisherman's Wharf boat parking lot under typhoon attack, a distant shot showing high winds taken from the front of the hotel without the security van, and 1 photo which Howard and Mariana have sent her of the back lot behind Danshui Port Police HQ that did not show the lighted mannequins and the ramp. This first Newsy Susie breaking news report is a tease, just one tantalizing taste. Susie picks up the laptop and kisses the Newsy Susie moniker picture on each frame of all breaking news going out tonight. For luck, she whispers to herself. Susie forces herself to wait until several news stations take up her first offer and broadcast the first brief teaser report. Then she calls her agent. "Something's going down. We have a story getting traction and more are coming. Look at your email. It's time for you to earn your money. Make sure my byline is respected and not cheated." "What is it, Susie? What do you need me to do?" She blurts, "Look at what I sent you, then speed dial the list of TV stations we sent you with numbers. Make sure the station managers are clear they have to pay. Be strong. Be brief. Get going." It takes everything in her to wait 5 more minutes, but she does. She sends out the biggest scoop of her life up until now, the second Newsy Susie breaking news report. Along with Susie's voiced introduction, it is the van's recorded phone conversation pasted onto 1-minute looping Fullon Hotel front door video footage of Wang Sanbao arriving that morning, exiting the same van now submerged behind the Fisherman's Wharf seawall. Susie knows what she has is as explosive as dynamite. She sends it out all at once to her agent and the 40 news agencies she has prepared with a subject header. Don't think you can't pay me for each time you show this. In 20 more minutes, she will send number 3, the already prepared breaking news scoop that will cement Susie's place in journalism history when she matches the audio with the video footage of the van taking off with sparks and gunshots. Susie doesn't let herself think about anyone or anything other than her ready news scoop, which will rocket her much higher than the armored van got. Those killed and their families, anyone or anything outside the range of her focus, she bans from consideration. This is news. This is organic. It's happening. The people need and want and deserve it. Besides her byline moniker, at the last minute, she inserts a small banner-type headline of her own she overlays on the bottom, President Plunge. One more thing she will become famous for on this day. Newsy Susie picks up the landline phone readied with 40 news agency phone numbers. She hits the first button and gets through a receptionist quickly. She's offering the breaking news she has sent, but always under her byline, insisting they understand this conversation is recorded, and each time they rebroadcast her reports, including if they loop it, she must receive her reporter fee. This is the fee just doubled days before, but she does not need to remind them of that. That's her agent's job. Susie slams down the phone and pants with deep breath and wide eyes. She is about to call the second number on the list, but first checks her racing heartbeat. Looking down, she pauses a few more seconds, swinging her head right and left, rapidly blinking her eyes. Then, settled back down, she hits the number 2 line on her list. She barks at Kitty, "Get on the phone to my agent. Tell him to call them again from number 40 on the list, upward, after he sees the second breaking news report in his email, which will air in seconds." She engages the second news agency on her list. "Hello, this is Newsy Susie. I'm sending you breaking news, the second report in the last 10 minutes, and I suggest you go with it immediately, but be aware you may not use it without compensating me for my byline and..." Newsy Susie creates a media frenzy for which the police and government agencies have no answer. Susie earns far more in that first hour than she earned in her whole life until then. The news stations simply have no other sources so early in the story, and they continue to put up Susie's 2 mesmerizing reports with the small photo of her face, the latest superstar in Taiwan. Whether it is only her 10 minutes of fame remains to be seen. But for now, she indeed is, as the chef said, instantly the best known and by far the best paid TV news reporter in Taiwan. She has no time to pat herself on the back. For the next hours, they will be busy whipping out new breaking news reports, always with her byline. As they work on new reports to sell, Susie's phone rings nonstop for 12 hours. But she never picks it up once herself. She only looks at the caller ID, telling Kitty to answer or not, and rewrites scripts for Kitty to say. Susie takes a break from phoning news agencies and calls Howard and Mariana in the Volvo. "I am happy with your media quality so far. Very little shaking of the camera." Susie pauses, and when they say nothing to answer, she moves on to why she is really calling. "I will give each of you an extra $10,000, but remember everything in our deal." "We remember. We will stay ready." Above the insanely loud moaning of the mammoth storm around the parked Volvo, Susie can hear Mariana's short, celebrating giggle. "Stay safe, you two. You should record some footage of police on site soon. Remember how to answer questions. Stick to the contract or else." She threatens the stick, then offers the carrot. "I'll say it again. You're doing a good job. There will be more bonuses if you keep it up." For the 100th time that day, Howard wants to kiss his pretty friend Mariana. He gets up his courage and blurts out, "Before this day is over, I'm going to kiss you." She looks at him, and her eyes change in a twinkle. They fall together in a passionate kiss, followed by 2 shorter kisses, each a delight to Howard, more than the money, more than anything. "I wanted to do that for so long, Howard." Mariana smiles at her new boyfriend. Outside, the afternoon is as dark as night, and the howling rises to new heights. One long, sustained shaking of the Volvo takes Howard a second to realize it is not his delighted heart. News stations. If the TV in Sanbao's home was turned on the news, his wife would have learned the story of her husband's abduction spreading all across Taiwan, a digitized, rushing torrent. News networks are several steps ahead of the police. All afternoon, police comment on the news rather than news reporting on what police have found. Not uncommon during typhoons or during active big stories, people are calling news shows, not only the call-in shows. Different this time is the scale of citizen participation, calling in by the hundreds with typhoon images and reports. Within half an hour after heated communication between a station manager and the station director, one network's news anchor announces on the air that for this weekend they are changing to a call-in format as their primary service. News reports will continue as our secondary service. Super Typhoon Noru is insane, horrible, an inferno without fire, tearing roofs off homes, flipping boats that were supposedly tied down, and cars that were supposedly safely parked. As with the Super Typhoon, the criminal abduction of President Wang Sanbao and subsequent plunge into the sea is raising many ceilings, radically challenging what Taiwanese citizens thought was possible. Most citizen calls to news stations before 1:30 in the afternoon, with or without video, were reporting damage to buildings, large trees, business signs, and vehicles. News networks are swamped with more damage reports coming in than they thought possible. In August 2015, 2 street-side post boxes were bent sideways, their thick metal center posts giving way in Typhoon Sodalor. The pair of bent mailboxes became popular tourist destinations. Thousands of miniature bent-over mailbox souvenirs were sold in shops and online. Now, many of the citizen call-in damage reports felt like a search for the next iconic image of sensational damage from Noru. Casualty numbers and sensational damage reports are stacking up, especially shared smartphone videos. Somehow, 3 parked scooters were blown over and then blown sideways and then blown down the stairs of an MRT subway entrance. A taxi filmed it from his dash cam as he parked illegally up on a sidewalk sheltering next to a tall building from savage winds greater than ever before in Taipei. The video footage looked like an invisible hand was playing with the scooters like toys. In another half-minute of unaltered video, a row of trees in the middle of a large street, one after the other, break in half or are uprooted in mind-boggling winds. So far, the most dramatic footage is from another taxi dash cam recording from an elevated Taipei traffic expressway. In one of the few remaining spots without safety walls, the video showed a small delivery van blown over one car lane and onto a compact car stopped with its emergency lights on. The van barely hesitates, lifted by a second tornado-like pounding gust of wind. It fly rolls over the small car and the adjacent railing. The sorry driver of the delivery van falls 2 stories to the street below, where latter reports sadly confirmed the driver and his wife passenger were both killed. Apparently, some people did not expect how furious the winds of a super typhoon crashing head-on could be. Less than usual numbers of pedestrian typhoon thrill seekers and foolish drivers are outside, but there are still too many poor souls paying a steep price for underestimating the fury of this storm. TV news reports are all either rebroadcasting Newsy Susie's breaking news reports, or news anchors have officials on the air commenting, or else they are showing citizen-volunteered smartphone recordings. Many images are shocking to see, as if watching a DVD of an incredible typhoon and somehow speeding up the film image's speed and turning up the sound. Most of the TV news footage is from cameras outside buildings or from citizens filming inside windows facing outside. As dark as the storm is, it is early afternoon, so the horrifying scenes are sufficiently lit for phone cameras to catch everything. News anchors continually remind viewers of what happened in the other super typhoons this year. They plead again and again with viewers, stay indoors, everyone. Only northern and eastern Taiwan come under the no work, no school orders Friday. But from about 1:30 that afternoon, many enterprises are grinding to a halt. It is one of those moments, such as when JFK was shot, when Princess Diana was killed, when the New York Twin Towers collapsed. Everyone remembers where they were when they first saw the news. Paul Hu shakes his head at the radio gaffe he hears in his patrol car, still slowly driving around in lower foothills above Bali. His car and his confidence are steadily being shaken. His police cruiser is battered by Super Typhoon Noru, and his small remaining faith in BLPD precinct leadership is tested by the unbelievable mistake of judgment he is witnessing. Paul wants to shout into the radio to stop this madness. It has gone past inappropriate, and now they are in bizarre territory. Discipline was not valued before, and now apparently all restraint has blown away in the winds of this storm. The first of 7 quick emails to his sergeant went out rapid fire, beginning just after the sergeant told them of the SOS. Paul urged him to tighten up the discipline on the radio and to understand that there will be an investigation of the crime that requires respect for evidence. He sends the second to urge the sergeant to read the first. After the SOS van recording began airing thanks to Sergeant Bao, Paul sent 3 more emails, all urging the sergeant to stop the broadcast before it finished airing. He sent 2 more to expand and simplify his points. The moment the SOS finished playing, Sergeant Bao picks up the radio microphone. "Officer Hu!" The sergeant voice barks out on the radio. "Don't you have work to do, fox face?" He laughs derisively at Paul's nickname. "Put a cork on the emails, rookie. Just do your job." 12-year police veteran Paul Hu resigns himself to getting through his shift, and not for the first time, he wonders if he should request a transfer from this purgatory called Bali PD. Unbeknownst to Paul or the sergeant, TV news stations have picked up on their police scanner blunders through Susie's quick reports. Every major news station in Taiwan is running the stories so far without giving BLPD credit. Other Bali patrol cars have been busy with a multitude of car accidents, all minor fender benders. Officers were photographing damage and sending office drivers home, barely able to stand up in the winds. No sooner did they finish one accident, they had to help with another one. Now they use the cruiser's loudspeaker to tell drivers at accident scenes to go home and come back to file reports when the typhoon is over. They delegated Paul to patrol the area with the least traffic and the most hills. Earlier he felt like he might be whisked off into a whirlwind, but now he grins, thinking things got a little boring. At least I haven't seen any accidents so far. Theo's house. An improvised SWAT team speeds through Taipei suburb streets without sirens. The SWAT van's shape is vulnerable to gale force winds that slam into the armored van's sides, so much so the strapped-in team worried the heavy vehicle would tip over several times during the craziest 8-minute ride of their life. "When the van stops, we go," the leader exclaims. As the van turns the last corner, violent gusts batter the sides of the vehicle, rocking it, and again it leans like it might roll over. The intensity on everyone's face is obvious, but the young leader shines most, full of confidence and savagery. Captain Jack knows he is the tip of this spear. "What if there are booby traps?" The one questioning is 15 years senior the young leader's age and rank. "Everyone listen!" Captain Jack scans past the inquiring officer to each of the sweating faces of his 10-man team. "Stick to your assignments. Knock off the chatter of everything else. You know what you have to do, and that's all you have to do, and that's all you think about." The van stops 3 doors down from the Gao's house, just 40 minutes after the abduction of Wang Sanbao. The closest officer to the rear of the van shoves the back door open. Captain Jack jumps out first and bolts toward the house in a swift trot, ignoring the wild, howling winds and branches sliding and waving in the street. Faces in the Taipei Central HQ crisis room are sweating too, listening with rapt attention to the operation in real time while they hurry to get their crisis center conference room fully functioning. They exchange knowing glances after the last exchange in the SWAT van. Captain Jack doesn't know he just dressed down Assistant Chief Chen. "Chief Chen will promote that guy or have his head," says the man to the right of feared and revered Colonel Han, commanding the crisis room that is still coming together. "Finally, someone on our side that's no amateur," the colonel says, shouting the last word. Young Captain Jack has his team outside Theo the driver's front gate. A white-tiled masonry wall blocks the worst of the incredibly powerful storm, blowing violently and screaming all around them. Captain Jack is pleased the neighboring houses in this wealthy neighborhood all have front walls to muffle and shield their tromping approach. Waiting for the scouts to report, he walks up and down the line, reminding them in pairs just outside the gate to look sharp, check all the rooms, take them alive if possible, and don't be surprised by small children. They cobbled together the improvised team from all corners of Central PD since regular SWAT personnel had a rare typhoon day off work. They took the first 10 officers willing and able to leave right away. Anyone who knew anything about SWAT in Taipei knew about SWAT instructor Captain Jack. He ranked top in every category, displayed skills and knowledge, and possessed unequaled high-speed decision-making ability. Unfortunately, he had no actual hostage rescue experience other than training exercises and no SWAT experience other than instructional training. However, compared to the crew they patched together from the halls in Taipei Central PD during Super Typhoon Noru, Captain Jack is a seasoned veteran and the right man to lead. He took charge from the beginning, shouting orders both to the group and to individuals as they geared up in the SWAT room, then going again to his motley crew individually, speaking confidently, optimistically, as if they were a veteran team. Captain Jack eyeballs 2 officers with small cameras on telescoping view sticks recording over both sides of the gate. There is no view inside the house because drapes darken front windows. 2 other officers quickly scale the wall as far as possible to the right and the left of the gate. These 2, weapons drawn, creep forward, slowly scouting. Video cameras on their helmets shuddering in the extreme typhoon winds show the Central PD Crisis Center everything in real time. Captain Jack does not wait for a word from the men holding cameras or from Central PD, trusting if anyone saw anything, a warning would come. "Go!" His shout whisper commands a ready officer who scales the wall next to the gate in a leap boosted by his partner squad mate. Captain Jack crams himself next to the door crack, and he feels bodies piling up against him in duplicated ready stances. They pour through the gate as it opens from the inside. From somewhere nearby, a tree branch loudly cracks off, resembling a gunshot, but the men stay together and pay it no mind. "We're through the gate," Captain Jack throatily says to keep his voice and everyone's nerves down. "Stay low, follow me." "So far so good," comments Colonel Han. Captain Jack has them keeping radio discipline. Yes, the only person who dares to engage Colonel Han, Chief Lai, sitting next to him, agrees in a quick clipped voice. "I saw him give each officer on the team only 2 or 3 assignments. He drilled the importance of silence and discipline and the major assignment of rescue and killing only if necessary." "They let you in?" The colonel frowns at this image. "No, I heard across the hall from the doorway. It was impressive," Chief Lai answered with a grin. They both approved of Captain Jack positioning an officer in the SWAT locker room doorway to keep out every person who wanted to say something to the team. A few senior staff had impulsively gone down to wish them well and see if they could somehow help. Some were put off by their blunt dismissal. Captain Jack knows the best stealth entry is a window or rear door given their assignment priorities, and he was ready to hear an order for simultaneous front and rear breach, but now he tenses as he observes the front door slightly ajar. He glances toward the officers with the cameras who offer no report as he scurries over to the door. The line of uniforms moves and stops like a rope looped sideways behind Captain Jack. As planned, an explosives tech moves in front of Captain Jack. The next 3 officers have handguns out. The other officers will use their hands unless they must take something from their belt to mace, tase, or shoot to kill. "We see the door is ajar, team leader." The senior tactical officer overseeing the operation from Central PD asks Captain Jack. The whole Crisis Center HQ also hears. Everyone in the room is standing up and pacing or leaning toward the big TV screen. "Affirmative," Captain Jack answers. "Permission to breach the front immediately, sir." He slaps the back of the explosive tech, who falls back to the rear of the team. Captain Jack knows he is going in. His legs say go. His gut instinct says go. And all the people outside and inside require immediate action. Which came first, Captain Jack's hand shoving the door or the senior officer's "do it" is hard to say. The first team flows, then bursts in. They allow themselves no reaction to the grisly scene at the dinner table. Officers quickly inspect every room before several of them begin awkwardly to remove duct tape off mouths, forearms, waists, and legs. More police squad cars screech to a stop out front, visible through the open front door. More officers pour out of the vehicles, weapons drawn. The women breathe and noisily weep out loud in relief and great pain, knowing their husbands and son-in-law were killed. "Are my children all right?" Both mothers want to know right away. They had mainland China brand smartphones and black surgical gloves. "Where can you get those gloves?" The one speaking read a script from a card. The 3 women want no comforting, but want to hurry and tell the officers what they saw. Officers there and those watching at Central PD nod knowingly. Police officers' wives. The women share remembered facts and observations, things like what the 2 bad guys said entering from the rear. They break into wails and sobs, squeezing each other's shoulders before talking on. The children are sleeping. "They look all right," says the lead investigator. "Mrs. Ping, one of the officers is a licensed paramedic. He says your children's vital signs are normal. A doctor has been called unless you want them to be hospitalized." He carefully puts the small empty drink bottles in an evidence bag to test the residue for what drug they used on the children. The paramedic officer inspects and dresses Brenda's mother's finger and tells her they will hurry to a waiting squad car. They will whisk her to Veterans Hospital, where a surgeon is waiting to reattach the half-severed finger. She is pale from pain, and she softly weeps, not for the pain of her finger, but for her lost son-in-law. She cry-talks as they move to the door. The paramedic hurries to put a makeshift cardboard tenting cover around her hand to protect the gruesome injury from pounding winds outside. Grandma Gao doubts they can reattach the finger, and if they can, she is sure that nothing, including her finger, will ever be the same. She wails that her finger will always remind her of her son-in-law, who she loved like her own son. A police officer opens the door to let the wounded woman and the paramedic outside. The wailing typhoon gale drowns out the woman's mournful weeping. She walks and sobs, ignoring her hair blown into a sideways shape as she steps outside, sliding along the stairs, nearly blown over. Paramedics on each side keep hold of her and guide her steps down the sidewalk through the savagely blowing typhoon. One man and one woman officer continue with the two presumed widowed women, apologizing profusely that they need to ask them more questions. The women pour out their observations about height and posture, eye shape and tilt, eyebrows and teeth. Both were thin. One was more muscular, the leader. One was taller, the follower. His eye twitched all the time. A spiderweb tattoo was on the inside wrist of the leader. Ruth thought one man might be bald from the way the cap sat on his head. Brenda wasn't sure about being bald, but she saw a difference because the leader looked like he had a full head of hair under his mask. No, they never took off their masks, Ruth answers a question. I remember they never dialed numbers, only took line calls, Brenda says, except one time. They used her house phone to call me. Caller ID showed that, Ruth said. Please, tell us the police know who they are, both women implore. Commanding officers listen to the rescued women's comments and questions and look at each other in the crisis center, knowing they had no answers whatsoever. That's it for today. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the reading this time. Please leave a comment if you did. What did you think? Remember, sharing is caring, so please do tell a friend who would like to join us here. If you are enjoying the journey, I'd be so grateful if you would be a supporter and pick up a copy of Danshui President Plunge on Amazon and leave a review. Until next time, take care. I look forward to seeing you here again. See you then.